I was working at Quick Trip, and my coworker, Dan Cotton, said, you know, there's these comics and they're going up in value. And of course, I was into them for the stories. I really didn't care about the value of comics. I wanted the art, the characters. But I did watch as some of these books that he pointed out had doubled, tripled, quadrupled in price. And so after a while, I was like, you know what? Okay, let's take a chance. And I bought 25 copies of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. Sure enough, they all sold, and it was the early 90s, and little did I know, but the comic book boom was about to happen. I started with just $300 in comic books and $300 in cash. Of course, my friend Dan said, hey, there's a comic book distribution in Atlanta. I set up my account and was selling out of a flea market. About a year into it, the flea market was broken into 1 hour before I was ready to sign my lease to go full-time. And I had to make the decision at that time as to whether or not this one event was going to change my entire business plan, or if I'd just go forward in faith. And I went ahead and signed the lease, and my customers supported me, and I was back up and running for business. Greg Fowler, he occasionally stops in still, and he used to knock on my door at my apartment and say, I need this week's comic books. Galactic Quest, the greatest comic book store on the face of the earth. How can I help you today?
So Galactic Quest, when we first started out, was a very small and humble store. It was no larger than about here to the window. When people would walk in, I'd greet them with, welcome to Galactic Quest, the greatest comic book store on the face of the earth. We didn't have much to offer. It was more of a mission statement than anything else. And of course, we'd answer the phone, Galactic Quest, the greatest comic book store on the face of the earth. It got to the point where we just kind of stopped utilizing it. We actually were getting bigger and bigger. Instead of sounding like a joke, it was starting to sound like we were bragging. Here recently, on occasion, we'll still throw in the welcome to Galactic Quest, the greatest comic book store on the face of the earth. Hello, welcome. How are you?
Selling comic books for a living in the early 90s was a very risky thing. Marvel went out of business in the late 90s. But here recently, the comic book industry has been very, very good to us, especially for the past 10, 15 years. Galactic Quest has been open for coming up on 30 years now.
Okay, 1978. Dear Log, I want to go into the comic book business.
So when I first opened up at the flea market, we called it Comics, Games, and Toys. Basically, there wasn't a lot of branding there. So I did have to sit down and think about the name of the store, and that's important. Sure, I could have called it Kyle's Comics, but you don't want to get that phone call, is Kyle there, is Kyle there? So I had to come up with a name that I felt like really captured what we were trying to do. So Galactic Quest, the name came from Galactic Storm, which was a Marvel big crossover, and there was a comic shop out there called Quest Comics, and I thought, put those two together, Galactic Quest sounds great. When I first started Galactic Quest, there was really no guarantee that I'd be able to do this all my life. We've seen probably over 40, 45 comic book stores and game stores and so forth come and go. I really feel like it's important for comic book stores to have a kids section, an all ages section, a section to introduce the next generation of readers. If you don't have a young reader section, you're not building the next generation, and that's important to send the message to families that this is for everybody. So when I first started the business in the early 90s, somebody saw me drawing and they said I should teach an art class. I went ahead and offered an art class, and we'd get 25, 30 students every week. One of the projects was to create a store mascot. That turned into storytelling, where we went ahead and created our own comics, and Galaxy Man and Cosmic Girl were born. When I was a child, of course, the first things that I really connected with and the first things that I ever read were some comic books. And I loved the colorful characters and the stories, the potential that the actual books had. I've been a fan of Star Wars all my life, and I wanted to be able to tell my own stories. I couldn't go out and hire Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill, and I couldn't build a Millennium Falcon in my backyard, but what I could do is I could pick up a paper and pencil, and I could draw. So this is the first comic book I ever created. You can imagine a 10-year-old child sitting down with paper and magic markers, and of course I couldn't afford to make my own movie, so I utilized the comics that I had, rearranged some of the images in my head, and put it all on paper with magic markers. I went to a lot of different Comic-Cons, and it was just kind of a fun little thing that I was doing on the side. Until one day an artist came in and said, hey, I want to create comics for a living. Do you got any ideas? And my daughters had been writing stories about cats, and I always wanted to do a children's book, but my daughters grew up way too quickly. So what I decided to go ahead and do is write a serious story about cats saving the world. And that was how Hero Cats was born.
It's Hero Cats of Stellar City. 6 cats that save the world. Very successful with that, and therefore it spawned Midnight over Stellar City. Midnight. Enter the shadows of Stellar City and beyond with Midnight as he battles the Crow King, Galaxy Man, and his own haunted past. Creating comic books has been really rewarding and a lot of fun.
Comic books are the perfect way to tell stories. In many ways, they've been dismissed, but when you think about it, if it weren't for Fantastic Four #1, the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe wouldn't exist. When it comes to storytelling, I can't imagine any way that's easier, simpler, more accessible, and captures an artist's vision more clearly.